Welcome, guys. So, what we will be going through today basically serverless solution architecture designing and development. So, this is our fifth session for this webinar series organized by S Innovation, and we are pretty much focused on serverless development mainly, giving you an overview of how AWS serverless development works and how we are developing serverless applications with AWS. In this fifth session, I will be mostly covering up what main services we use, mainly serverless services we use for day-to-day solution architectures, and how we could design them by planning proper breakthrough and reminding few things in mind when we design solutions. Straightforward thing is that serverless doesn't mean that there would be there wouldn't be servers. It is not that there is no server or it is serverless. There are servers, but you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to manage them manually from your side. AWS or any other cloud providers will handle those servers for your for you, and you just need to work on your features, functions, and deploy them. AWS or any other cloud providers will handle server for you. So this is how AWS guys put it, that serverless is not equal serverless. There are servers, but you are not thinking about it, or you are not managing them. And this is how serverless came into the picture with AWS. So this is pretty much it. The things what I just told you, that build and run applications without even thinking about your server, and this is how awesome it is. You can only focus on developing your features and deploy them. AWS will take care of your whole server side of it. And while developing on serverless applications, there it is good to have different layers or different stacks of your application, so that every layer, every service event can work independently, no matter what happens to your another service. It shouldn't be dependent on one service to another service. To make it independent, you should be designing your solutions that way, so that it can improve your visibility and availability throughout the web. You can learn more about it here on aws.amazon.com/serverless, and it is quite resourceful. The next slide, what I will put, the core 4 features why you should go for serverless development. We have been talking about this thing on our last sessions, but I wanted to keep reminding you every time, while working on serverless or learning on serverless, you should be considering these 4 points for your development, so that whenever you are on client calls or whatever you are discussing with your client, you can mention these points in your discussions. So serverless is all about adapting at scale. You could adapt your scalability for your application at any time, at any cost. You don't need to worry about it at all. It can scale from zero to peak of your demands at in the matter of minutes, and this is how fast it can adapt to your scale. It means your serverless application with AWS, and you don't need to worry about it at all. At the same time, when you are adapting this scale, you don't need to worry about your cost as well, because you will be only paying for the amount of time you will be utilizing your resources. So you don't need to over provision your services, or even give a fixed amount of price for your services you are using. So it is automatically optimized on your behalf, so that you pay the least amount of money for your server side of it. Alongside with your cost, it is really helpful to use serverless frameworks to make your ideas faster, and making things visible on your application. because what traditionally happened, you will have to have a separate team for your server side maintenance, and if not, then your developers will have to manage those servers, diverting their attention from application feature development to server side development. So you don't need to worry about it, and you could only focus on your application features, and release them, develop them, release them, get feedback, iterate that, and go with the market pace. And it is that faster it is to develop new feature in market. um, I think overall all of these points will give you an overall idea how better it is to go with serverless framework to build your application. And on our last session, I showed you how with specific CLI command line interface you could easily build things by using different services from AWS, and it is that easy to integrate, develop, and then configure it as early as possible with CLI services. There are other services also. You could configure things from directly console, or programmatically, or CDK, or from your code side of it as a code to build your infrastructure. So there are multiple options available to build your application easily with serverless technologies. That leads me to go for the next slide, which will represent you the core serverless services from AWS. We use them in day-to-day basis, and these are the I would say that these are the soul of AWS services, serverless services. Obviously, Lambda will be there because Lambda is the flag bearer of serverless services from AWS, which was introduced by AWS only to enhance the productivity of serverless applications. You don't need to worry about provisioning, managing, or configuring servers. In this case, EC2 instances. You just write your code on your function as a Lambda, and then deploy it and test it. Deploy it, test it, and make it productive. So this is what a Lambda will be doing. It will be only taking your code and run it directly on your behalf. You don't need to worry about provisioning any of those server side configurations. Then this Fargate, it is in containerized service from AWS. What it will do, it will make your containerized application into a serverless platform. You don't need to worry about provisioning container size, container bandwidth, or any other configurations related to your containerized application, like Docker applications. AWS will be handling it through this service, Fargate, which will be handling all your containerized applications. This is pretty much handy. This can be replaced by ECS if you have ECS containers, elastic containerized service. You could replace them with Fargate, whereas ECS is not a serverless service, but Fargate is a serverless service. So you don't need to worry about those configurations for your containerized application with this service. Then comes this DynamoDB, which is the most favorite one. You could use it as a NoSQL database for your application. You could use it as a caching service for your application. You could access this service through SDK, CDK, and directly by DynamoDB APIs. It is just a matter of seconds to provision a DynamoDB instance. This is how fast it is. It can handle millions of data, millions of operations per milliseconds. So you don't need to worry about the performance, cost, even maintaining of this service specially. This is a powerful service from AWS for database. As I said, this is a NoSQL service. So for relational services, database services, you could use this one, which is coming from a clone from RDS. It is a serverless service for RDS databases. It is called Aurora. So it is again, whichever services are serverless, you don't need to worry about cost, server side provisioning, and configurations. You will only use them and pay for the time you are using. So this is how fast it is, and how user friendly it is for different types of database services. Like NoSQL will go with DynamoDB, relational databases will go with RDS Aurora. And then comes into picture these API gateway, which will be mainly responsible for creating REST APIs for your applications. You could use other types of APIs with it, like web API, HTTP API, HTTPS APIs, but REST APIs are the core stand for API gateway. You could use it from, again, CDKs, SDKs, or the sole APIs from API gateway. This is pretty much handy when you use CLI to configure and create this service. This is a matter of seconds to create it. And then these app syncs comes with a unique feature and a pretty robust feature to create GraphQL APIs. This is so dedicated to create GraphQL APIs for your application that whenever you create a GraphQL API, it will integrate DynamoDB with it, and we use DynamoDB as its data source. You don't need to worry about connecting them, configuring them, and even provision them. AppSync will automatically do that, and it will take DynamoDB as its data source for creating, maintaining, and generating GraphQL APIs for your application. This is super fast GraphQL API builder. It can handle enormous number of traffic for your application, even with a blinking of your eyes. It is really fast. I can't even talk about it more, how fast it is. We are using it on day-to-day basis. Almost all of the services we are using on day-to-day basis. I already talked about Amplify on our last session. It is a super helpful service from AWS Serverless list. It can configure, it can consume all of those other services, serverless services, and it works as a parent framework to connect and use all of those serverless services. We will use Amplify more often on our upcoming sessions and hands-on labs, as Amplify is growing its popularity, and the ease of using it making it pretty much popular. S3, who doesn't know about S3? S3 is the most simple storage services from AWS to store objects in it. You could use folder structure to store your object, starting from 0 size to petabyte scale of size object within these S3 bucket. And it is so cost friendly. Mostly you will have different types of S3 storage classes, and you could use them for your objects. It is in serverless service. You don't need to worry about cost managing it. It will only cost you as much as you use it. No need to provision it and pay a fixed amount of cost for it. Then another unique function service comes into picture, which is a Lambda step function. This Lambda step function comes from its parent service Lambda, but it is quite unique. Other than Lambda will be only working as a sole source of your application, but Lambda step functions goes one step ahead and connects multiple lambdas and execute a number of functions one after another. And this is quite handy when you use some kind of transactional functions on your application, or any other functions which required multiple steps to complete that application process. So this is quite handy because you don't need to worry about, again, cost, managing it, configuring it. You will create it, and then those separate lambdas will be executed whenever this step function is triggered. So yeah, this is another quite good application of Lambda, next level application. This one, the next one, SQS is quite popular nowadays to handle your queue service. This is called simple queue service from Amazon AWS, which is pretty much the fast service, one of the fast services from AWS. And I would say it is one of those more established and powerful services from AWS. It has so many sub features that you could create a self-dependent application with SQS. You don't need to worry about um, any other services. If it is an event based application, we call it event driven framework to handle your application through events only. You don't need to worry about managing databases or other API calls. All those applications will be, you know, running based on the events within that application. So those events can, can be pretty much well organized and well performed by this SQS service. As it is a serverless service, you don't need to worry about cost, organizing them, managing them, provisioning them. You don't need to worry about at all. The next one is another pretty handy and quite small and sweet service from AWS. It is called simple notification service. What it does, it will give you a number of features, not a big number of features, but small number of features with an effective facilities with it. You can use it to send a notification from your application internally and externally. It can be mobile application, it can be a web application. Even nowadays, there are some SDKs available for building desktop application with SNS. And yeah, this is quite handy when it comes to integrate things within your application, like other CRM notification or other third-party tool notification within your application. This SNS will be your best friend out there to integrate those services within your application. So yeah, these are the core services I would like to introduce whenever anyone wants to know about serverless services within AWS. And these are the core services which we use to create our solution architecture. Going forward, I will be showing you pretty much standard serverless architecture from AWS. This is not generated by me or us. This is generated by AWS itself to represent a standard solution architecture with mostly serverless services. There is no other services apart from serverless services. Here we are using, let me go through step by step. So whenever any end user or any client device is accessing any application, that application is routed through Route 53. Again, Route 53 is a domain management service from AWS, which will handle, configure, create, provision. You can buy and sell a domain using Route 53. And it's pretty much like GoDaddy, Namhost, like those services. So this Route 53 will be handling your DNS services, and then from your end user, it will go through Cognito. Okay, how could I forget about Cognito on this list? Cognito is another configured services from AWS. This Cognito would be handy for your application when it comes to authenticate and authorize your users and manage your user access and permissions within your application. So yeah, so these I think we did talk about it on our last session. So you may have an idea about it. So this Cognito will be handling user and access permissions with rule-based permission for your application from user point of view. And then this Amplify will be holding as a framework to integrate all other services like API gateway, lambdas, or DynamoDB as a data source. So our code base will be coming from another GitHub repository or other version control systems, and it will be connected through Amplify for our application. Again, it can be used for your front-end development and back-end development, or both separately. You could use Amplify only for your back-end architecture, or you could use Amplify only for your front-end architecture to be deployed. But both also can be done within Amplify. So it's based on your architecture and your functionalities of your application. So yeah, when any end user will be using our application, they may get into our application with REST APIs. Again, this is an API gateway. I am using some REST APIs for our to-do application to have these kind of CRUD operations, adding to-dos, completing to-dos, deleting to-dos, getting all the to-dos, get any specific to-do, and any update for any to-do. So all those separate operations can be done on separate lambdas, or even on one lambda, but I would prefer to go for separate lambda because it would make this application more light, and you don't need to worry about, you don't need to spend money based on the time the lambda is being used. It would reduce your cost and performance, I mean increase your performance and reduce your cost if you use multiple lambdas. So yeah, for all of those operations you could use only on lambdas to perform those operations. And lambdas can be easily connected with your NoSQL database service, in this case DynamoDB, if there is any operations related to DynamoDB. So this is how AWS represents their standard serverless architecture with all the serverless services. But for our use case, I will be representing this one, which is my first serverless architecture for one of our internal application. It is still under development, but again we are modifying it as we are going through. This is what the flexibility AWS will be giving you with serverless technologies. So let me explain this one. Again, Cognito will be handling users, and I have kept permission based access in our backend development pipeline. These developers will get only access to deploy their code through code commit on Amplify, and other end users will access our application through Cognito. So developers will not use Cognito or any other access control service to deploy their code. They will be using their access keys or provided by code commit, in this case working as a version control system to deploy their code into our backend deployment pipeline. So yeah, when any developer is pushing their code through Amplify, it is getting deployed, and any third-party user, any other user, end users will access our application with Cognito based on their permissions and access. And yeah, they will be using API gateway for internal or external API calls, which is REST APIs in this case. And then these REST APIs will get executed with Lambda for business logics and or other event-based triggers, like if any user is uploading their profile picture on S3, then it will trigger an event to execute some operations. It can be compressing that image, or it can be creating multiple sizes of images, which can be done on Lambda, and then get back to S3 to store it. So those types of triggers also we can use from these services, S3 and DynamoDB. So in this case, we are not using DynamoDB actually. We are using a relational database service, which is Aurora. So Aurora also can be configured with Lambda to be used as a trigger service. So this is the sweetness of using serverless services. These serverless services can be connected with each other so fast and so easily within internal route, that you don't need to worry about security or performance while connecting from one service to another service, especially these serverless services. These are all secured and using HTTPS to access one and another. This is also another good idea to use all these serverless services. They are all independent and they can be used to one and another securely within AWS cloud. So yeah, this was the overall idea about designing any solution architecture with serverless services. You could use this tool to design your solution architecture, which is uh, draw.io, but now it is called diagram.net. And I have used this to design our these architecture and all our future and running application architectures. And yeah, this is pretty much it. But the important thing is you will have to have that mindset to do more R&D while designing this architecture. This is nothing, I mean, not only to design and connect one services to another service using those tools. This is more about planning how these services will be used, and how these services can perform their best to run your application. And when those things come into picture, you will have to do more of R&Ds to decide either to use RDBS, or either to use NoSQL database services like DynamoDB. So yeah, this is really important to do more R&Ds on those, and having a mindset of learning on daily basis, so that you are up to date with the trends and the documentations from those services. And if you continue to do so, I think it is quite easy to build serverless services out of the box applications with these all these services. So yeah, this was the overall thing from my side. If you have any other questions for me on these services, or how you could plan these solution architectures, how easily you could design them, how easily what are the process we follow while designing those services or solution architecture, you can reach out to us anytime. Yeah, thank you guys for your time.